In this tutorial, I'd like to go in a little bit more in the various options we have for controlling the merge, alignment, and deghosting of your images inside of HDR Express 3. For this, we'll go and start with a new image. I'll create and merge a new HDR image. And you'll notice when I load the folder, it's going to bring it back up with the HDR demos file folder selected. We always remember which folder you previously used and preload the thumbnails for you whenever you open that menu. Again, I'm going to be working with raw images, so I have my raw source filter selected. And I have images that were captured handheld without a tripod, so these are moving objects or camera. I'm going to select a series of 3 exposures, one-stop increments that I captured in Yosemite a while back. And you see that they're displayed here. When I click on the Merge button, the software automatically evaluates the images to pick the optimal keyframe and applies the default merge and alignment settings. Now, since this is a live scene and it was handheld, the software has automatically aligned the images properly. If I zoom in here on half dome, you can see that it's sharp and the railing is sharp. But I have people moving here. And in this particular case, there's a ghost artifact here, and this person moving, and there's a ghost artifact here on people that move between the frames. So I want to go in and correct for that. So let me open up my Merge to HDR dialog again. I'm going to go down and select that same bracketed set of images here. But this time I'm going to adjust my ghost removal versus noise reduction slider. These are kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum. So I'm going to change this towards a bias of 0.5 for ghost removal. And when I click on the Merge button now, the software is going to go back and merge and apply a different weighting factor to the deghosting. And this will clear up these artifacts that you're seeing here. So now when I zoom in, you can see that those ghost artifacts are gone. Let's look at the original setting. And now that result with the adjustment to the ghost removal slider. So if you see ghost artifacts like this come up in your images, you can make that simple adjustment just by changing the slider value here. So in many cases, just adjusting that slider will help you remove any ghost artifacts. Sometimes, though, you have images that have other issues. Let's take a look at this example. These are 5 exposure brackets, one-stop increments, and this is a shot of a beach. And this beach has people on it, which is what you actually want to see in a photo like this. But sometimes the keyframe doesn't necessarily show the picture that you want. So I'm going to click on the Merge button with the automatic settings, and let's see how this turns out. Now if I zoom in on here, you can see that this looks like a fun day at the beach. It's a lot of people out. We have moving water, waves, people moving around the beach. And the software, again, has done a great job of identifying the keyframe and removing all of the ghost artifacts. But from a composition standpoint, I know that I have a frame that would be better suited as a keyframe where I have this person facing the other direction. So let's go back and see what we can do to manually select the keyframe. I'm going to go back into the Merge dialog, scroll down, and I'm going to select, again, this set of 5 images. Now going over here, I'm going to click on the Manual Select Keyframe tab. So this is Select Keyframe and Manual. And what I'm going to do now is, if I look at this, the name of this file, this was 1868, and that means that this was the -1 keyframe was the one that was selected for this. So if I click on this, HDR Express 3 is going to generate a merge preview for me that I can see down here. And so I'll just scroll down and confirm. Yep, see, that's the one where he's facing away. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select the 0 EV keyframe, because this is the one I know where the gentleman is facing the camera. So if I look at that, that's it, and he actually has a camera in his hand. So I think that this would make a nicer image. So I have this selected, and then I'll just click on the merge button. And now the software is going to go off and merge with that keyframe that I selected there manually and give me a different result. Now you can play around with this and see what effects different keyframes will have. Typically you're going to do a better job with a merge with the 0 EV or the darker keyframes. And the reason for that is those frames contain all the detail in the highlight. If you go to overexposed frames, you're going to have missing detail in the highlight, and that's going to make it harder for it to merge. So let's zoom in now and look at this. And this is the result that I want. And if you look up here, you can see the base name here. This is 1868, and this is 1869. So this is the image that I want to use, and I know which, based on looking at the file name here, I know which keyframe was selected to make that. Now let's go look at another option that we have for the merge. All of these samples that I've shown you now have been either with handheld cameras with moving objects, or cameras on a tripod like this last one with moving objects in it. But if you have time and you have the ability to shoot a static scene, let's select this one. This is 12 exposures here. It's at 1-stop increments. So I'm going to select all of these. And this was shot on a tripod, and there's nothing moving in these images. So for this, I'm going to select the static objects and camera. If you choose the static merge option, the software doesn't necessarily need a keyframe. It's not biasing or preferencing a specific scene. It's just doing an even merge. And when I do this, I'm really going to get the best shadow and noise response out of this image. So if you have the ability to put a camera on a tripod and shoot a multi-frame exposure bracket, and there's nothing moving in the scene. If you're doing interior architecture shots, for example, this is a great way to go. You want to choose that static option, and that's going to give you the cleanest possible shadow details and renderings that you can expect. So if I look at this scene, the untone mapped version of this image is over 20 stops of dynamic range. So this is a very, very high contrast scene. And you can see that HDR Express 3 has done a great job tone mapping this down into just under 8 stops of dynamic range. The scene looks natural, there are no halos. The contrast is even between the exterior contrast outside the windows and the contrast inside the room. But now let's look at the shadows. I'm going to click down here and look at the deep, dark shadows in this scene. This is the darkest area of the scene. And you can see that it's very clean results here. Well, the floor is kind of dirty, but you can see that in terms of noise, this is very clean. So that's one of the options. If you're working with static images, select that static option, and you'll get the best, the cleanest total dynamic range reproduction of the scene possible. Now, if you choose the static option and you actually have moving elements, you'll see how much movement there actually was in the image. I'm going to do one more. Let me go back. And this was another handheld shot. 4 exposures in this case, handheld. And I'm going to leave the static objects and camera selection. And this one actually had quite a bit of motion and movement between images. So this is a case of what you don't want to do. So now if you look at this, I'll zoom in, and then you can see all kinds of alignment issues. All of this, you can see basically the 4 individual frames, how it tried to overlay them, and there's no alignment possible if you use the static merge option. So now I'm going to go back and click on this again, select the same 4 images. And I'm going to change back to my moving objects. And I'll leave the ghost removal and noise reduction slider where it is and say merge. And almost like magic, this is what the result that you get. So let's zoom in, and you can see that all the stonework and everything, all the detail is perfectly aligned and tone mapped. And this is all automatic with the standard tools here. So now you have a better understanding of the different merge options. And if the automatic mode doesn't work for you initially, the different types of controls and options you have to select some manual settings on there. And that's it for this tutorial. Thanks again for watching.